we kind of wanted to explain what is data. How do we differentiate data from a gut feeling to data by sample and big data, and what does it really mean? So the data is there, and our gut feeling is there, and big data is there. We eventually, as humans, making decisions. And the more data we have, the better decisions we can make. Obviously, the gut feeling will never go away, because eventually we are an organism that feel. And any data, no matter how much of it, you will always stay in touch to your gut feeling. However, it might give you a clearer vision of the reality, okay? Because eventually it's all about the reality that we live in. So I just wanted to go back to that. So today, with the help of Eliran, and Eliran behind the scene is doing all the workshops, and this time it's like touching to his thing is doing the statistics behind the scene of every part of our operation. And as you know, we want to always be more accurate and more pinpointing to the needs of the residents, and therefore we learn behind the scene how they behave. And that's Eliran's job, and that's part of what we do on a daily basis. So data impact, if you can go back for a second, data is impacting, I'm going to be talking about the traditional data, about the dinosaur, and Eliran going to talk about the future, which is the big data. So that's how we split it. We are currently using traditional data for operation, development characteristics, and marketing. So I'll just show you samples of how do we use data, and how does it impact our decision process, okay? And if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Yes, Ido? So development characteristics, we would like to know usually what product to build. We have done it about maybe 14 or 13 workshops, like a year and a half ago. And we talked about how a developer is making decisions of what to build, what will be the unit mix, where to build it, how to design the amenity, how big the package room should be, and what will be the unit mix between 1-bedroom, studio, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and so on. And we are using data in order to be more accurate and not to build a product that later on the market doesn't have interest in. So Zillow, which we all know, and slowly but surely overtaking our world, have conducted a survey, which I recommend anyone that is in the industry to go and take a look, because these hundreds of statistical data, have conducted a survey who took a sample. First, they took a third-party company, so it's not Zillow have done it, because they are the one who advertised it, and obviously they are a business, and therefore you assume that they are biased with the information. So they took a third-party, unrelated, has no identification with Zillow, to conduct the survey. They've taken about 13,000 people, and they put them in 4 different groups. We have here in front of you the 3 groups that we thought relevant for our discussion, and they took 3,000 for buyers, about 3,000 plus for renters, and about 1,100 for long-term renters. And from those samples, each one of them in the statistical language is sampled. From those samples, they kind of took the information and tried to reflect it on the entire market and its behavior in 2017. So they took the renter market in 2017 and they tried to conclude on the entire rental market in the US from the sample of 3,000 surveys that they have done. Okay, any questions about that? So they have tried to reflect on the entire buyer market in the US. They picked up 3,000 random survey people to survey, and that from this sample, they are reflecting conclusions on the entire buyer market. Okay? And that's what we want to present to you. What are the conclusions?
From the statistical standpoint, this part of the chart, the picture. They were trying to get a representative sample. So they weighted the US population by age, by ethnicity, by education, household income to make it representative. Okay? So if they were to take 3,000 buyers from the same state, you cannot really use it if you live in a different state. Same goes for renters. Or if you took only women or female buyers, that would be a problem. So they weighted all those samples by the US population as well as they could. That's one correct.
If I would ask 100 rabbis about my beard, they're all going to say that it's beautiful. That's what he tried to say. So we are not asking the rabbis. So go. Who are our potential? It's working. Thank you. Who are our potential clients? So this is a developer. It's something that we want to know. It's the first thing. Who going to be our clients? And we are using the traditional data that I showed you before from Zillow, the sample, to kind of find the answer. So, and this is again, it's not a reflection of Jersey City. It's a reflection of the US market, okay? So you see that the buyers today are 40 years old, average. You see that the millennials are 42% of the buyers. So we are talking about the millennials for quite some time. And I feel like it was like years ago, but maybe it was 3-4 years ago as they entered the market with their purchasing power out of the down economy in 2017, where they kind of got out of school and start to get their first job. So now we see that they're accumulating money and they are becoming the larger segment within the buyer market, okay, the millennial. So we talk about them, but here they are, 2017. You see that 61% of them are married. So if you have a couple that you can look at them and see, oh, they look like millennial, there is 42% chance that they may be going to be a buyer. Okay, so this is a statistical information that it's very helpful for us. So if I would like to build a product today and I want to go to the larger market segment, I'm probably going to cater it toward the millennial. Okay? And that's what we talk about it, but here is the statistical data to support it. Singles, 30%, unmarried partner, 9%. So this is giving you a reflection. If we go to the renter side, we see that the millennials are 50% of the market, and you see that their average age is 32 years old. The median age, I'm sorry, is 32 years old. And you can see that married, 33%, single, 48%. Now, us who are working in Jersey City, and know the market, we can, our gut feeling right now, that it's probably right, because that's the people that we see individually as agent. I don't know what the other agency, but that's what we see in our leasing office. We pretty much see what they are telling us. So from a gut feeling, we can have one thing, but from a traditional statistical data, guys, this is a sample, as we know, for 3,000 people that reflect the US market. Okay? Any questions regarding that? Yes?
Isn't a 40-year-old not a millennial, but a Generation X?
So it says in small here.
40-year-old is
Millennials,
Yes.
18 to 37.
18 to 37.
So a 40-year-old is the average
Is
age.
on the 29.
The median.
The,
So if you
the median age, not the
take
average.
all the buyers who participated in the survey,
Right.
put them in a row
Right.
by order, the middle one would be 40. It's not the average.
Got it.
Okay? Because for averages, when you have outliers, it might skew this number. Median is the middle.
Got it.
Okay?
Because that 40-year-old is a Generation X.
Exactly. Yes. It falls between
Thank you
38
for
and
the-
52. Correct.
Got it.
What is the 29%? 29 X's? Yeah.
It's us.
Generation X. So buyers between the ages
It's a 38 to
and
52. It's you, Tamir. You are not here. What specific location traits impact the way we build, rent our clients to our clients? So this is again from the rental segment. We want to know what is the most important thing for them. By far, safety is number one. You can see here, safe neighborhood. Then safe buildings, you see security in the building. The last thing that they care is school. Okay? The last thing, it was shocking to me also, but this is a sample. And my gut feeling was that school is further up the ladder, but based on the traditional survey, you see it right here, the last thing. Obviously, space is important for them. Amenities, shared amenities, it's right here. It's one before last. Shared amenities. So we are, as developers, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, thought that amenities is the most important thing, and we built the lavish pool and everything. But when you ask in the renters in 2017, all over the US, they tell you that it's number one before the last. Okay, which is shocking. Not to us, but it's shocking. Any questions about that?
This is right for the renters or also for the buyers?
No, that's only renters. That's the 3,000 samples. This is now for purchased homes in the past 12 months. And this goes by the generation. Every color is a different generation. The millennial here, it's the blue. And you see safe neighborhood. They ask the questions, those who purchased, how did they make the decision? And safe neighborhood, again, came number one. As the reason, you see that the millennial, compared to the other generation, paid less attention to it. Okay, for whatever reason. If you go to the button here, shared community amenities again, and you talked about renters because you wanted to differentiate it from condo, you see that purchaser also put the community amenities last as making decisions. So the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms was ahead of all those decisions. Obviously, safety was again at the head. So the impact of the amenity, if one wants to build a building, whether it's condo or rental, and he considered to put, to sacrifice FAR or sellable or rentable square foot for the value of amenity, he should consider it again. He should reconsider. So this is traditional data, and that's what it impacts us. Okay. By the way, close to public transportation is second to last. So if we are in Jersey City and we know that we are a transient community which depends on public transportation, obviously it might not be applying here. And the second thing is parking. So we all know here that people do not care about parking, but in the overall census in this sample, parking was important because it's all over the US. It's not necessarily in Jersey City. So obviously you need to pick and choose your data to make the right decision, but this is what it is. What do we build? And again, this is from the same sample. You see renters, better value for the money, the most important thing for renters. Better value for the money. We try to figure out what does it mean, better value for the money. I think it reflects experience. And again, maybe we're a little bit skewed because we are all the time thinking about experience, the resident experience. But when somebody is being asked, what is the most important thing for you? When you say value to one, it's like everyone has different values, right? So everyone appreciates the value compared to how much it costs in a different way. So, but this is, from our interpretation, this is experience. Okay? Then you go more living space, 48%, which we know that here specifically it's maybe not apply, but this is overall census. And if you go to the bottom, closer to transit. So here we know that the closer you are to the path, it's more important. The overall census is the least important thing. Okay, so this is a little bit skewing when we think from Jersey City perspective, but overall, that's what the sample said. Okay, we think that as you live close to transportation, you care more and you appreciate more and you're willing to pay more. But the census says that it's the opposite. Okay, the traditional sample. Any questions about that? And by the way, this is all being taken from Zillow, and we disclose it. They have a book of about maybe 150 pages on those statistics analysis, and it apply for that 13,000 people that they census. This is, again, purchasers. Least important, I'm going to touch base on that. Outdoor space, okay, least important. Price range, again, value, okay? This is like the most important, price for the value. Again, number of bedroom, number of bathrooms. You can see air condition. Today, you know what I'm saying, why to say air condition in Jersey City? You're pretty much getting every new product with air condition. But it just tell you that it's from the entire US and some places where maybe it's important that they make the decision on that. Or maybe global warming, and now all of a sudden, air conditioning become a necessity where if you would ask a few generations back, they didn't need an air conditioning because there was no problem. So maybe that's why it become up. Operation, how does statistics and how does data that support the statistics impact our life in operation? Operation, basically from our end, is customer service. It's all what we are generating as a experience in the real life. That's operation. Operation is experience in the real life, and that's what we are working around the clock to make happen. We have sampling on a daily basis about 12,000 work orders that we are recording on a daily basis from different sources, from different people. We have about 40 different variables on every work order. So the database is growing, obviously is splitting up exponentially once a work order is becoming. And we are making our operation decision based on the data that is coming through our residents on a daily basis. Okay? You understand the data group? The data group is our residents, and whenever they generate a work order, we are sampling it. So how can we increase our customer satisfaction? Which that's what we are being measured by. We, generally speaking, and I talked about it last time, we have the Net Promote score that we are looking for, and that's how we measure our services against. This is an example of a monthly KPI, which we are generating on a weekly basis to our building staff and to our management. So this allows us, the red marks are our standards of operation. So let's assume that whenever there is a work order open, we set up a standard that says that within 24 hours, we need to answer the work order. Okay, so anything here from call to schedule, you see here the mark. This is in the white side, is everything that comply to our standard. And anything in the red is work orders that were not taken care of by our standard. So if I am a manager and I see that this yellowish is in the red, meaning that, what?
It's a high priority.
Right, that, which is a high priority, you can see it here. This orange high priority is in the red. And let's assume that it's this 11,504 work order. I know that the guy who initiated, the customer who initiated this work order, is probably not getting customer service right. So I'm a manager, I'm in my office, and I want to see how do we service our customers. I'm looking at the red, and anyone that is in the red potentially is going through a bad customer service. Any questions about that? You understand? So we are sampling the work order. We are right away live putting it to our statistical analysis and to our data processing. And we are generating an interface to management to know what happened in the building on a daily basis. So obviously, if I am a community manager and I see that unit 502 in the art house have initiated this work order, I probably will pick up the phone and ask if everything is okay, and will try to mitigate the potential problem ahead of time, because I already know that my operation did not meet the standard. So I'm not waiting for them to call me, listen, the guy said that he would come here and he never showed up. I'm calling him in advance and telling him, listen, we potentially had a problem and I'm rescheduling you. Okay? So we mitigate the problem before it really developed one. And this is what help us to do it. This is a KPI, which is generated from the data that we are getting. Okay? So this is how we tackling that. Obviously, we have different stages: call to schedule, call completed, call to reassign. It's all stages in the process of taking care of a work order, and we're sampling every stage by stage to know that it's within our standard operation. Key performance indexes. How to allocate resources. We want to know when do we need manpower and where it should be. So we are looking here on work order created for all SPM properties 2017. You can see that in Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Saturday, there is a low probability of a work order. Most of our residents are generating it on Tuesday for whatever reason. Okay, most of our residents are generating it on Tuesday. If I go to the next one, you'll see that this is by hours. So between 5 to 1 or 2, this is where the majority of the work orders are being generated. So obviously you know where residents are doing while they are at work. They make our life miserable. They issue work orders. So, but this is just to let you know what do we learn about our customers. Now, if I want to advertise a new unit for rent, a 2-bedroom, so I can pick all my 1-bedroom residents and probably target them and send them an email between this time on Tuesday, and I will have high probability that they're going to open the email that I sent to them, because I know that they're interacting with me on a larger scale by their need, without me motivating them. So just to let you know how we can utilize and how we do utilize the data that is coming from the residents. Marketing, and I did an introduction. This is another way where we sampling and measuring our efforts. So we all know that we have marketing budgets, but then it's very hard to know while you use the shotgun system to where you really hit and which bullet really did its job. So when we are sampling 6,000 people who either contact us by phone, email, or walk in, and we are trying to see what are the efforts that we have done by resources or by sources, we want to see what's the cost per effort. And you can see here, I go to the extreme, that around September 2017, for every lead for every lead, we paid $600. So for every lead, we paid $600 in September 2017, which is shocking. You see that there was a hike in that period. You see roughly here, since 2015, what happened with the cost of lead from different sources: Google Campaign, Street Easy, and Zillow. So this is reflection of cost of lead per source. Okay? Then down here you see the cost of lead, the cost of appointment by source. The cost of appointment. So this is when somebody came to the sales office, and you can see that roughly at the same time, which is lagging because lead turned into appointment, so it's always a week or 2 weeks behind. The cost of appointment in the same roughly time cost us $2,000. I'm talking many times about the cost of lead, cost of appointment, and many realtors who are not aware when somebody walk into your sales office and he hang up like $2,000 mark here, and he walk in, obviously you have to make sure that you are able to close him, because just to bring this person in is very costly. Now remember that who drive that cost is the sources, and pay attention to the sources here. They are all digital platforms. And remember the last workshop, or the one before that, we talked about the digital world and the digital platforms. I can tell you that over the years, that cost of lead or cost of appointment, because they are related, are much higher. In the last 6 months, just Zillow on a cost of lead per renter cost us about 300% more. If you go to Street Easy in the city, when they initiated $3 per day for any listing, it's from $0 to $3 a day. So now, if you want to have listings in Street Easy in Manhattan, you have to pay about $300 plus for that period of time. So it's very expensive, and this is growing big time. Okay? So this is just allowing you to measure the cost per effort that you do, appointment and lead. Obviously, based on that data, am I pushing more money to Google? Am I pushing more money to Street Easy? Or am I pushing more money to Zillow? Where would you push more money? Obviously, you would go to the lowest cost, and you would either do it in Google Campaign or in Zillow, because this is the most efficient one. Street Easy at $600, I wouldn't put money in it. So that's how things are changing, and you see how if I would sample it in June, I would see that Street Easy is the cheapest way to advertise, and in 2 months later, it's the most expensive way to advertise. Okay, so that's why we need to be all the time sampling, and traditional data is no longer fast enough for us to make managerial decisions.
Yeah, what is the 600%?
Every lead, if somebody called you, in order to make him call you, it costs you $600.
For this specific month?
Huh?
What do you include in
The source. So what if I spent or that month I spent $600 on the Street Easy, if I got one call, so that's what it was. Follow? We are measuring like to the dot on every indication. So here it's another data analysis that we do, and this is very powerful. This is you can recognize the island Manhattan. You see the Hudson River, the East River, and this is the power of lead to appointment. So we took here different areas, and we gave them a different color. The greener it is, the stronger we have a higher probability of turning the appointment to the lead into appointment. Okay, look at it a little bit. So a person, where's Jersey City? Here? Yeah. So a person in Jersey City, there is about 40% chance that if we target him, he will convert for an appointment. Okay? You see that in Manhattan, the Upper West Side, if we target a person in the Upper West Side, there's a good chance, there's about 60 to 70% chance that he is a buyer. And the lead gonna turn into appointment. So this is checking for us the quality of the leads, because the digital platforms, they are geniuses in charging from us and generating us leads, but not all the leads are qualified leads. So we have here a digital way to qualify the lead quality. So we are not just spending money, oh great, I'm getting lead. I also want to see what is the quality of the lead. And this is, again, an unbelievable tool for us to understand that if I got a person into my sales office, like see how I turn it upside down. If you are coming, I don't know you, and I ask you, where do you live? You tell me Upper West Side. In my mind, there is 70% chance that you gonna come to meet me in the sales office. And this is just over the phone. Hi, how are you? Where are you calling from? I'm from the Upper West Side. I live ta-da-ta. Okay, I know already. I have a 70% chance, and therefore I should put much more time to you than somebody who called from South Jersey. Because the quality of the lead of this phone is much better. 70% chance versus 5% chance. So this is traditional data on the border of big data, because we are not live on it all the time. We need to take the time to process the data and then generate the statistics for him. But Zillow, on the other hand, are doing that with a logarithm live all the time. They are generating output data for their own, for themselves, live all the time. As somebody called, they know. As somebody lists, they know. And based on that, they generate, by the way, the premier agent, which we all know. The cost of the premier agent is pretty much checking by zip code where is the highest probability to make a transaction. They know that somebody who call you from 07302, which is our zip code, there is a very high probability compared to somebody in Greenville or other location to make a transaction. Therefore, when you want to be the premier agent, you're going to pay $10,000 a month versus somebody in Greenville, which will pay $2,000 a month. And this is all a logarithm done. Okay? So it's a very powerful tool, and that's where we're going to live. We are already living there, but maybe now we know it. When to advertise? Again, Tuesday is the best day. Okay, this is based on study of over 20 million emails delivered over 10 months period. Remember, when our residents are issuing our work orders, remember the day? Was Tuesday. Okay, happened to be. I don't know, there's a causation to it, or it's just a correlation? I don't know. That's statistically, I just pay attention to that now. Highest email open, 11, another thing. We also saw that they are issuing us work orders through the email also around that time. But this is like 20 million people. Guys, it's a big sample. Okay, so if you want people to read your email, send it. Though I told Eliran that I'm always getting emails from Zillow and Trulia on Saturday around noontime. Like notoriously, I don't know who else is experiencing. I thought that they know better than anyone else when they can get my attention. It might be a crazy thing, but maybe they know on a per person rather than on a 20 million people sample. Maybe they know per person what Eyal is doing on Saturday, and that's why I am getting it at 12, while Eliran is getting it at 11 at night. So this is crazy, but I think that's where Eliran going to show you that that's what's happening. So Zillow does not take that sampling, that the traditional data, into account. So anyone else who is looking at that, Zillow is way out there in the future. Unfortunately, we are still there. I think now we're going to talk about big data.
Here we're going to talk about what happens when data gets big. Okay, so what does big data mean? So 3 V's. Keep in mind 3 V's. Every time you hear this word big data, 3 V's. First V, volume, right? So we showed you some of our databases. We had what? 12,000 work orders. We had 6,000 leads for the Oakman. The survey was 3,000, right? Here we're talking about petabytes. Just to visualize the idea of petabyte, this is 1 petabyte, this is 1 terabyte, this is 1 gigabyte. So most of us have 128 gigabytes on our cell phone, 64, 256. These small ones, terabytes, petabytes. Google, they have between 10 to 15 exabytes, which 1 exabyte is 1,000 petabytes. It's very hard to understand, almost impossible, the amounts of data that some organizations own. Okay? Second V, velocity. So big data comes in a very, very high speed. Okay? Examples, 3 hours of video are updated to YouTube every minute. And it is growing as we speak. 40,000 search queries every second in Google. And just Google. We have Bing, we have Ask, we have other search engines. Third one is variety. Remember the question from the quiz? What was the percentage of structured data versus unstructured? So structured, as I said, is rows and columns. Think about transactions, think about things that you can quantify, like work orders, that we can put in rows and columns, in tables. 80% of the data we have right now in the world is in an unstructured form, meaning photos, videos, text, emails, tweets, posts on social media, click streaming data, unstructured. Everything that you do with the phone, location data, it's unstructured. People came up with ways to store all this data and make sense of it. Now, when we talk about big data, we have to make 3 main shifts of understanding what big data is. The first one is causation, which is we can explain things, why things are happening with causation. It's out. It's irrelevant. We cannot prove for causation in most cases. From the statistical perspective, in order for you to prove that A causes B, you have to run a very, very careful experiment. You have to randomize, very, very costly. There are some companies who do that, but it's very, very costly. In big data, you only care about correlation. Big data can only explain why, what is happening. For example, I don't know why you would like this movie, but trust me, you will. And we're gonna see an example of what's happening in the world. Now, for you to understand that, so most people say correlation implies causation. Incorrect, and I have an example. This is 2 variables. The first one is the divorce rate in Maine. The second one is per capita consumption of margarine. Okay? Very correlated across a decade. This is yearly data from 2000 to 2010, very correlated. Can you see a cause and effect between the 2 variables? By the way, this website is very, very funny. It's called Spurious Correlations. Google it. They have the weirdest correlations between variables. I don't remember. Death of hanging and a number of movies that Nicolas Cage was playing in. I'm not kidding. Is there a cause and effect? No. There's correlation for sure because it can be proved mathematically. Second shift, samples are out. So Yal was talking about samples. The Zillow survey was made by around 3,000 people. Now in big data, there is no samples. We take all available data. Some of it won't be available, but we'll find ways to take all available data and make decisions based on this data. So forget about samples. We have the technology, the computer power to take all the data and analyze it. And the third shift is executive is out, messiness and dirtiness is in. Now it's very, very important to understand. As I said, volume gets huge. When you have exabytes of data, and let's say even 1 terabyte or 1 petabyte is missing values, or very extreme values, or outliers, it's gonna get blurry. It's not gonna, you're gonna see the whole picture, because it's a very small percentage of your data. And here I have an example that 2 plus 2 sometimes can be can mean 3.9, and it's good enough. When you're trying to make decisions and you have so much data, that will be good enough. There's 99% that I'll make the right decision using big data. So now we're gonna make it interesting, not just math and characteristics. Let's look at examples. So we have individuals. All of us are using big data products without even knowing that. Maybe we know, but we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And then we have businesses in other industries who make decisions all the time to increase their revenue and profits. So let's start with individuals. So traveling, who has bought a plane ticket, a flight ticket on Kayak or any other social platform and saw this green recommendation on the site? Book now, 85% chance that this is the best time to buy a ticket. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from sample? Is it made by all the flights made from, let's say you want to go to Atlanta from New York. Is it based on all the flights made from New York to Atlanta last year? No. The data that generates this nice outcome comes from hundreds of millions of past bookings that happened since inception, since a person, by the way, an Israeli guy, Oren Tzioni, who came up with this idea. Real story, I read about it in a book. It's called Big Data. He was sitting next to people in the airplane, and he asked the person, "What did you buy a ticket?" Because he bought it 6 months in advance. He thought he got the cheapest ticket. And then he found out that the person who bought the ticket 2 weeks before the flight paid way less. Then he asked the person on the other side, and same thing happened. Paid way lower price than he did. So he is a data scientist, and he is a professor in the University of Washington, and he created this company and this algorithm. And the outcome, by the way, 80% of the time, this algorithm is correct, and it saves $50 on average per booking. Netflix. Who is using Netflix here? Okay. You all make big data decisions. Well, Netflix helps you to make it was. But here, Netflix, they had a competition in 2007 in Kaggle. It's a data science project. Competition was for $1 million. They shared all the data, millions of rankings of movies made by their users. And then they said, if a data scientist or a group of data scientists can create an algorithm that predicts what our users are going to watch next, better than 10% in our current one, they're going to win $1 million. It happened. There was a winner. And Netflix has been using those algorithms to tell you what you should be watching next. Is there a causation in those recommendations? Probably not. If you ask Netflix why you recommend Eyal to watch this movie, they cannot tell you. Based on correlations, based on people who watch the same movies as Eyal and rank them approximately in the same way and like an additional movie that he didn't watch, the first thing he's going to see is this movie. Correlation only, huge amounts of data, and some of them were messy, but they handled them. People you may know, LinkedIn, Facebook. We all see those recommendations, right? Go to Facebook, ask them, why should I add Joe Schmo to be my friend? They have no clue. But there's an algorithm that runs maybe thousands of variables, where you came from, where the city, who you sent text messages to, who are your mutual friends, multiple different network analysis, and then they came up with this amazing product, and it was invented by LinkedIn, by the way, so just to clarify. So businesses. So up until now, we were making those decisions. We were adding friends on Facebook. we were booking flights on the right time, and we were watching the right movies based on big data. Now, how, on the other side, how businesses make decisions based on big data for their own benefit. So how do you, marketers, target people in terms of marketing campaigns? Let's say you want to send a brochure to your customers, and here we have a retail example. How do you target? Here we have target. Has anybody heard about the example of the story about the pregnancy prediction made by Target? So I'm gonna tell this funny story real quick. In Minnesota, there was a father walking into a Target store, yelling, screaming, looking for the manager. Where is the manager? Manager ran to him, and what's going on? What happened? Who do you think you are? You're sending my daughter baby diapers, brochures, and discounts. Are you encouraging her to get pregnant? The store owner didn't know what's going on. He said, I'm sorry, I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to check what's going on. 2 weeks later, he called the father and to apologize, of course. I'm sorry. It was a misunderstanding. It was a mistake. I'm sorry for that. And then the father on the other line said, no, I'm sorry. There were things going on in my house that I wasn't aware of. My 17-year-old daughter is indeed pregnant. And how did he do it? Big data. Target found 25 items that might be correlated with a person who is pregnant. And for example, if you bought one cocoa butter lotion and extra large purse, like this one, and then if you bought magnesium, and if you bought a bright blue rug, there is 87% that you are pregnant. Now, the model was so accurate that they could predict when you're gonna give birth to your baby.
Maybe she bought a pregnancy test.
Well, it wasn't there. It's a real example. This is the rug. True story. Target didn't release the outcomes of this model, of this project, but it was very, very successful. And think about it. You really want to capture your customer when he gets pregnant, because all of his buying habits are changing. You want to make sure that he stays your customer. Huge step in a person's life. That's how they made sure that he's going to come back to them with coupons for diapers, for baby-related products. Okay? This is one example. The second one, so also it was a question in the quiz, what TV show was created by big data? And most of you got it right. House of Cards. There's a reason for that. That's big data. They found that Kevin Spacey, as the main character, was very liked by Netflix users. Okay. Then they found that David Fincher. That's also correct. As a director and a producer, produced very, very good shows for Netflix users. And the British version was very successful for Netflix users. What did they do? $100 million investment. Huge investment. Third of their content creation budget. Was it a gamble? Was it bad? No, it wasn't. If you go online and you look for articles about this project, you'll see everywhere that every Netflix executive said it wasn't a gamble. We knew it was going to be successful from the moment we started working on it. Why? Because of big data. We crunched huge numbers, a huge amount of data, and we came up with the conclusion that add all those characteristics into one show, and it's going to be very, very successful. So Yala is going to finish up by talking about real estate, big data and real estate, because he's the expert.
So real estate today and in the future. And again, it's for us today, how is big data currently being used? We talked about Zillow. We all know Zestimate. And when we today, our asset management, which is asset management is to manage the asset, it's to price the asset, is to do price analysis compared to other assets within the same neighborhood. So we are priced ourselves compared to the market and not compared to what we think it should be. This is a process of analytic work that takes us few hours every week in order to come to a conclusion that we cannot raise rent when it comes to renew because the building next to us has 1 month free because they just opened the door. So all that analytics we are doing within a traditional way and finding out how to price a unit that comes to the market, whether it's vacant or it's coming to renewal. And this is done by traditional data. We are looking around. We sometimes going to visit other sales office or leasing office. We are making phone calls, and we are creating sampling of our local market and determine how to price it. And then it takes our residents about 30 seconds to tell us that we have asked them to renew their lease for 1 bedroom for $2,900 when it really should be $2,850 because Zestimate is saying so. So big data, everyone knows who is Zestimate? No? Zestimate is owned by Trulia, by Zillow, and what Zestimate does is projecting the cost of the asset or the price of the asset, whether it's rental or condo or a house, in your local market. And how do they do it? They take millions of data from people who post, from transactions that happen, and from public record, and they put it all together and they tell you your 1 bedroom in that specific address should be worth $2,850. Okay? And this is taking 30 seconds. You put the address and you get the output. So this is one way how big data is being used, and our asset manager time is no longer required or needed because he himself can go to Zestimate and find out what will be the price of the unit as it come up. That's part of how big data is helping us. Safety and comfortable. Today, automated lock, where you're going to see more and more. We are now in our new project, changing all the locks to be electronic locks. So people will not need key anymore. They're going to use their phone. And what it will do for us, we're going to know the transaction within the apartment. We want to know where our residents, when they are in, when they are out, how they are engaging within the building. And this is for us a big data processing to understand how they live within the building. Okay? Also, your Nest, and many of us as it, is obviously big data allocator because he's taking a lot of your daily functions into his big data, and analytical is coming out, and these companies can make decisions based on your behavior, our behavior. On the digital world, we understand that things are changing constantly. We are trying to get as many indications as possible. We know today that if there are 5,000 new units that are being opened in Long Island City, they will probably affecting us. So we, in our real estate mind, Long Island City, not really anything to do with Jersey City, but from the digital world perspective, when I'm searching and the algorithm gonna decide which property to bring to me, when I'm not local, they're gonna see Long Island City and Jersey City the same. And the price value for their user, who is the one who search, will be determined in a different way than what we think. And therefore, maybe 5,000 units that are coming online in Long Island City has a major effect on the algorithm of Zestimate in the current market where we are in. Okay? So this is how we kind of taking big data, and that's how we're going to impact our life. So from a resident perspective, if you remember, I said that the developers by 2022 will only clean the toilets because we don't know our residents anymore. And part of that, or the major contributor to what I think will happen, is basically Zestimate, Zillow, Trulia, because their algorithm going to decide where is the value. Okay? And will impact our decision as a consumer. How big data we'll use in the future? Again, decisions will be made based on online search. We're looking for rental and condo, location, and we are today using it already. We are buying he's all day long buying, shopping, and negotiating, even though they don't listen, on how much how much we pay for the words Jersey City, Powerhouse, School District. So for that combination, if somebody is searching it and then Ockman is coming up, it costs money. You didn't even click on it. Just for you coming up the first page on those words, you pay to Google. Okay, just for coming up. People think, oh, when you click, you pay. No, just when you're coming up, you already pay. So those words, right now, just bringing us in a very historical way to your first page. But that, later on in the future, will determine potentially where we build. Because if we, from big data, can see that people who are looking Jersey City and are interested now in the school system, maybe we should go and build next to schools, because there is a change in people's mind and they project that in the future their kids that they are just become pregnant, their kids will go to public schools in Jersey City and they're going to pick the zip code where the best schools are. So this can give us projection for years to come where will be demand and how it's going to be consumed. Okay? It's a lot of data. Determine asset value based on location. I just touched base on that. Okay? The search engines going to tell us, listen guys, go build in Atlanta. There will be in 10 years demand over there. Why? That's what the algorithm says. How the algorithm figure it out? Big data. Millions of information. Millions. Videos, emails, text. Millions of data. Okay? And that's where we think it's going to go. Because eventually, big data is, you remember, much clearer vision of how things look. Another way, maintaining the maintenance decision. I told you that right now we are doing it through 12,000 inquiries, which is in the traditional way. But if we know big data on the same building, it might change all the way we're going to make decisions. So as we know that we see that more like live, people are going on the treadmill, running it for 30 seconds, and then they go to cycle. Maybe something is getting dysfunctional with the treadmill. So we should trigger right away a repair to it before we get a work order. Because it's a habit. Somebody goes on it, run, doesn't do anything, goes, and then the second person comes, doesn't complain, go, then the third person. Remember, I only know now when they issue a work order that something is wrong with the machine. If they don't issue a work order, we do not know. But if there is big data allocator from the machine itself, it changed my world. I can go prevent 2 bad experiences by fixing it after the first time I know about it. Okay, this is big data. Projection of the problem as it occurs live or before it happens. Today we build, we are always in the history. We are always in the past fixing things. Things that happened, we are going to fix. We want to fix things as they happen or when we project that they will happen. Give you another example that we do today in an awkward way, but we do. So if I have a building with 75 new units with a specific microwave for all those units, there is the same microwave. If I got 2 work orders that the microwave door, when it opens, the light is not on, 2 work orders, I would like to make sure, and I know that it's a fuse that is in the door. Real story. It's the fuse that's in the door. I would like to go and order extra fuse right now because I want to project that the third one will happen soon. I don't want it to happen. Or further than that, I would like to buy 73 of them because 2 went bad and already go and replace the fuse before it will happen, because I can project by big data that the appliance is going to go wrong. So everyone is talking about connecting appliances to the web and be connecting, and you know it's like nice that we talk to our oven, talk to our fridge, talk to this, talk to that. How they call it?
IoT, Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. But why do we need it really? Partially so we can prevent the problem before you complain, because it's only become a problem when the human complain. So if I'm resolving it prior to that, then you're not going to complain. Okay, this is big data, and that's how it is going into the residential market multifamily. I was just last week in San Francisco in a conference which called Technology in Multifamily. And multifamily as a whole, as an industry, is way behind. From inception, from development, all the way to the way people live. We thought, for whatever reason, that multifamily doesn't need the technology. And today there are hundreds of startups that are just going to bring technology into that, because they figured out that they can learn a lot about the person consuming through the way he lives, and where it's better than within his own building, his own unit. There are a lot of issues with it, obviously, privacy, legal, and so, but that's where the market overall going. We're going to see much more technology going into the buildings in the near future. Any questions, guys? Yes, it's not Eyal's quote. It's like, if we have data, let's look at the data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. I didn't say that, but I believe in it. I believe in it. I'm going to start to say it from now.
So, theoretically, big data is great, but I feel like overall in the presentation, a thing that we haven't focused on was who owns big data. And big data is great, and you talked about how Zestimate, Redfin, Zillow, Trulia, those are big companies those are internet companies, and they have the capability to collect those big amounts of data. They can do analyses on them. How would we be able to use big data? Will we have to build something that's able to collect those big amount of data, or are you suggesting that we subscribe to those companies that are able to collect big data in real time currently?
So my previous workshop was a developer will only clean toilets by 2022. And the reason for it is that if we don't have the data, if you don't have the data, then you will not be in power.
Right.
So it maybe answer the question. We believe that in order to stay in business, we need to have data.
Right.
Because otherwise, Zillow, which they are now over 50% of the market, will control and monopolize the market. Remax, which is the largest realtor in the world, it's only 5.7% of the overall market, where Zillow is 38% of the market. So they own the data, and therefore they will control.
Right. So that's right on where I was going with it. So if you go to the last slide, as a property management company, we know you have all the maintenance data, so you can apply big data to that. But on the second picture, you said we want to have location data, you want to have traffic data, and you want to see movement data. Where do you propose getting those data? Because are you planning on building a platform to collect all those data, or are you going to subscribe to, let's say, Google Maps, where they can provide you with that data?
Yes, so for your question, so for example, you said there were three. Last one, we have sensors maintenance. Second one was determining asset values based on location and traffic data.
Right.
Now, you have, as you said, there are two options. You can either be the owner of the data, which is very unlikely, because you're not a telecom provider. You're not an app user, so Uber has location data.
Right.
Or you can buy this data. You can, there are data owners, and there are data users. There are a lot of big data companies, mainly startups or big data consulting firms like Accenture and Deloitte and McKinsey, and there's a bunch of them. You have those two options. But the best companies, those are do both. Google, Facebook, Amazon, why they're so successful? Because they both have the data and they have the talent to analyze it and make insights from it.
And turn it into a product that consumers like us want. So eventually, the data collector, as big as they are, we believe control the product market as well. And we also believe that eventually they will have semi-control on the real world. So now they are controlling the virtual world because it's all data. But we believe that they also control in the future the real world, which is the service that we are getting boots on the ground. And that's why it's scary. Because if you are a self-employed, there is a very good chance that all of us will be working for somebody, and maybe it's not even a human anymore.
But for example, Twitter and telecom providers, they usually sell the data. Twitter does not analyze it, they sell it out and make a lot of profit from it. Just an example.
Any other questions? Yes.
Big data is great, and I'm a big believer, but what weight do you give to the gut feeling? You know, we take a decision on gut feeling. Our generation use gut feeling. When you interview someone, you use big data, but at the end of the day, it's a gut feeling. So what weight do you put for a gut feeling in your decision?
I think that it's a lot of intuition, but I'm a great believer on the data. I'm trying to rely as much as I can on data, and sometimes I'm frustrated that I don't feel, that's where my feeling is, that's my gut feeling, that I don't have enough data. So I put my gut feeling, whether I think that I have enough data or I don't have enough data. That's where number one. And that's where my frustration comes, because I think I should get more research done or do more research before I make a decision. And that's where mostly of my gut feeling comes. So it's prior to make a decision, I would like to know that I feel comfortable that I have researched it enough. That's where personally. Kendra today had the present, like she talked, I can call you, can spot you. So you want to share with us your opinion?
Well, I feel like the data and our gut feeling are really one and the same, and that data is really just proving what we already know to be true for the most part, because it's all patterns. You know, us as humans have our patterns, and that's what data is showing us, is those patterns. So I don't think that you can get rid of gut feeling, because data is reliant on like that information, really. And I think how you were talking about gut feeling in the beginning is really a biased experience. And that's not truly what gut feeling is. Gut feeling is outside of your experiences, and it's pulling from collective information that's like, I guess you could say it's like floating out there, but by forming these algorithms and these machines, we can pull it in and like make it more tangible. But I don't know if that touches necessarily on what you're saying, but I think it is important to not get rid of gut feeling yet, or to say that you're getting rid of gut feeling, because on a day-to-day basis, we are still humans interacting with humans, and we don't have that technology in the palm of our hand necessarily. Like, we have a lot with our phones. True, but you know, like, I think it's still important to have both of those. I think they work together.
Yeah, I think not in all cases we can use data. Like I said, choosing what movie to watch next, we can use data. When to book our flight, we can use data. We can decide who we should add on Facebook by using data. But of course, there are multiple examples where data wouldn't be enough.
Well, and also there might be instances where data, we're reading it wrong. So I think that's what I was saying earlier, is we have to remember that this is something that humans still created. So if you're looking at something and your gut is telling you that it's wrong, it might be that we're looking at data that's being shown to us in an inaccurate way, or missing something.
That's a different problem.
I'm just saying, they work together.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, no, so one thing I want to say as kind of a follow-up to what Mr. Weathers have spoken about is that, so I work in finance and I work with big data all the time. So I found this presentation fascinating. So thank you for putting this together. And it's amazing how many parallels there are. So one thing I wanted to say, and again, I don't have a strong real estate background by any means, but with big data, the reason why I feel that the human element is still important and what will always be important is because if you have too much data, it becomes overwhelming to the point where you will get all types of false relationships. As you pointed out, the correlation between divorce and butter, right? Clearly, from a gut feeling perspective, it makes no sense. But the data says, hey, look, it's statistically significant, and you have the data to back it up. And so if you do enough of these simulations, you will get what's called false positives.
Exactly.
Right? And so that's where the human component comes in, where you then have to interpret the data and say, hey, look, this relationship is statistically significant, but wait, it makes no sense. So is that something that, I guess, as a real estate developer, is that something you do, or is it something you just completely just kind of rely on the data to kind of make that decision for you?
So if I'm understanding your question, is how much of the decision is relying on data
Right.
in our industry?
Right. You can almost call like, there's obviously data obviously plays a big role, but then is there a common sense component where you say, hey, look, the data says X, but you know what? I've been doing this for 15 years, and this doesn't make any sense.
I think that there is no really an answer to it because there is not enough data to answer it. What do I mean? The real estate industry is lagging. So 10 years ago in the financial world, I had a friend who lived here who was brought just to write a logarithm for trading 10 years ago. The result of him coming here and living not far from here is that last week or the two last week, I met 5 people from Wall Street that as a result of the logarithm that he wrote are now transferring to other industries because the logarithm replacing their trading mechanism. So in the financial world, I think there is much more big data to kind of understand where the market goes, right? You know today that to be a Wall Street trader, there is no future in this job to the general public extent. In real estate, the question is developer or agent or general contractor or all of the above, what is their future? And I don't think there is enough data because we are not sampling enough the industry to make a decision. I believe that the way I see it is, as I said, in 4 years, we're going to look totally different. I think it's just going to be, which is already, and many people here and there are agents here that are years in the business, and they are seeing this change. They are seeing that the world that they thought their reality is a different reality to it, because it's all the reality of what we think we see, right? So I don't know if merger and divorce in Maine is maybe the reality. But in our mind, the way we grew up and the way the environment treating it, it's maybe non-related, no causation, nothing, but correlation is there. Maybe there is something in it, but we don't think so, because that's the way we bought it. So what is our reality? I think today in the world, in the industry, in the real estate world, there are changing of reality. It's a fact today that the agents and the developers don't know their customer as good as they knew him or her 5 years ago. And it's exponentially. I don't know, anyone agree with me here? Or it's only me? Karen?
On his line, I was going to make a statement as an agent, basically along that line. This becomes very challenging to listen to everything because from a developer's perspective, I think it's 100% your focus and your goal, but from an agent perspective, along the line that you spoke on, it's challenging to leave here and find a little mom and pop office, Boeing Realty on Grove Street, which does, I know for a fact, does none of this, spends hardly anything on social media advertising, and yet he continues, the broker owner, to pick up $2-3 million listings in the Van Voorst Park area. The last few weeks has been unbelievable. Mom and pop office, open forever. When I first got my license, very long time ago, it was there with them. that office has successfully operated with probably no data, no spending, and yet his human touch and his interaction, he's extremely, extremely successful. So as an agent, it does get challenging and perplexing to know where you fit in the midst of all this. And I was just about to make that statement.
So for your statement, from a statistical perspective, take a step back, take all mom and pops in the country, and how many of them are still successful?
From a statistical perspective.
We're talking about samples and number of observations. If you have one observation,
Yes.
and you say, this small agency is still successful without using any of this.
But this is our area and this is our competition,
Right.
and I'm an agent in this area, so that is my focus. I'm not concerned about the rest of the.
Right.
I'm concerned about my area.
Right.
This is where I live, where I grew up, this is where I work, where I sell, and where my pride is. And he's extremely, extremely successful. And you look at that and you say, you wonder, you do wonder where all this is going. I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Karen, for sharing. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for coming.